What if there existed a phrase so precise, so perfectly aligned with the spiritual laws of the universe, that speaking it aloud on an empty stomach every morning was enough to activate a flow of supply your rational mind could not explain, not as magic, not as illusion, but as the exact demonstration of a spiritual law that Emmet Fox studied, proved, and taught for decades with documented results. Emmet Fox observed something very few teachers dare to name with clarity. The state of morning fasting is not merely an ancient religious practice, it is the exact moment when human consciousness is most permeable to divine truth. Consider the state of your mind upon waking. It is a liminal space, a sacred window right before the external world invades the mind with its noise, its demands, and its anxieties. In this fleeting period, before digestion begins to draw physical energy and before the news of the day scatters your attention, your subconscious mind lies utterly open. There exists a sacred window where every word declared with operative faith penetrates directly into the core of your being. A single phrase, spoken at the right moment with the right consciousness, causes the flow of supply to begin. Prepare yourself, because what you are about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about money, prayer, and your own spiritual power. To understand why this scientific prayer works, we must first deeply understand how Emmet Fox viewed money. To him, money was never simply printed paper, minted metal, or numbers on a bank ledger. It was divine energy condensed into physical form. It was the visible expression of an invisible spiritual substance that flows constantly from the divine mind toward any person who places themselves in the correct state of consciousness to receive it. Fox taught that the vast majority of people live financially blocked not for lack of talent, and certainly not for lack of agonizing effort, but because of a fundamental disconnection between their consciousness and the source of all abundance. This disconnection is not a punishment from above, it is a self-imposed exile. It is fed by inherited beliefs, accumulated fears, and mental patterns repeated over years that install themselves in the subconscious as thick, invisible walls against prosperity. The scientific prayer that Fox perfected was not a supplication directed at a distant, reluctant God. It was a powerful act of recognition. It is declaring aloud the spiritual truth that abundance already exists, is already available, already flows, and that you are the authorized channel of divine love to receive it. That declaration, made strictly on an empty stomach, holds a multiplied power that completely transforms financial reality. Money follows consciousness without a single exception. When consciousness expands toward the truth of divine abundance, money inevitably finds its way to the one holding that faith. Consider the story of Lucia, a graphic designer who spent 3 agonizing years stuck at the exact same income level, no matter how hard she worked. She was trapped in the classic illusion of physical effort. She took on more projects, extended her hours deep into the night, and aggressively reduced her rates to secure more clients. But the mathematical result at the end of the month was always identically disappointing. She was reaching the end of the month with barely enough to survive and a deep, gnawing sense that something fundamental was failing in her relationship with money. One afternoon, a spiritual mentor introduced her to Emmet Fox's teaching on the morning declaration. Lucia was a highly analytical woman, and she was fiercely skeptical. Her logical mind told her that financial problems are solved with better business strategies, marketing, and spreadsheets, not with phrases spoken before breakfast. Yet, a deeper part of her recognized the undeniable truth. She had already exhausted all earthly strategies to no avail. Her logic had failed her. With nothing left to lose, she committed to the practice for 21 days. Every single morning, before drinking a single drop of water or coffee, before checking her phone or allowing a single thought of her daily tasks to enter her mind, Lucia stood up and declared the truth. The first few days, she felt nothing special. The old doubts whispered to her. But Fox always warned his students that spiritual transformation occurs first in the invisible, silent realms of consciousness before crystallizing into visible reality. On the 16th day, the shift materialized. She received a massive proposal from an international client that instantly tripled her monthly income, a client she had not pitched, had not sought out, and had no prior connection with. Lucia realized in an instant that something deeply real, something vastly more powerful than her own physical effort, had begun to move on her behalf. This was not a coincidence, nor was it a stroke of random luck. It was the precise, infallible operation of a spiritual law. When a person declares the truth of divine abundance in the pure state of morning fasting, they bypass the cynical filters of the waking mind. They activate a new pattern in their subconscious mind that silently and powerfully begins to reorganize their external reality. The subconscious does not debate. It does not argue. It accepts as ultimate truth whatever is presented to it with repetition, emotion, and conviction. If this teaching is awakening a profound recognition within you, please like this video so that more people can discover the life-changing power of Emmet Fox's scientific prayer. Subscribe to the channel to receive more spiritual truths that will transform your life, and leave a comment below with a single word that describes the energy you are feeling right now. Emmet Fox did not arrive at these profound conclusions through mere intellectual theory, nor through abstract theological speculation. He developed this understanding through decades of rigorous, direct observation of thousands of students who applied his teachings and carefully documented their results. What he found repeatedly was a clear, undeniable pattern. Those who practiced the morning declaration with discipline and genuine faith experienced massive financial transformations that could never be attributed to random chance or mere coincidence. But Fox was also a deeply pragmatic teacher, and he carefully identified exactly why many people failed to see any results at all. The most common error was not an absolute lack of faith. Rather, it was the habit of pronouncing the words from a deeply hidden mental state of doubt, cleverly disguised as prayer. People would recite the words of abundance, but inwardly, they harbored the quiet, desperate belief that nothing would actually happen. And the subconscious mind, the faithful, unquestioning executor of your dominant consciousness, produced exactly that reality. It manifested an absolute absence of results, which perfectly confirmed their original, underlying doubt. Scientific prayer requires a completely different mental posture. It requires entering a state of absolute, unwavering certainty before a single word is ever spoken. This is not a fragile hope that the prayer might work. It is the rock-solid certainty that spiritual law operates with the exact same reliability, precision, and indifference as the law of gravity. You do not doubt that a dropped object will fall to the floor. The exact same absolute trust must be applied to the law of divine abundance. This certainty cannot be artificially manufactured by forcing positive thoughts. It is built upon a profound spiritual understanding. When you finally understand that God is unlimited, inexhaustible supply, and that you are the natural, intended channel for that supply, certainty arrives simply as the logical consequence of that magnificent truth. There is a core, fundamental principle in Emmet Fox's teachings that very few students truly grasp in its full depth. The morning declaration does not ask the universe for anything. It is not a petition. It is not a plea. It is a recognition. This subtle difference changes absolutely everything about your capacity to manifest. When you ask from a place of lack, you are implicitly affirming to the universe that you do not have. The universe, which constantly responds to your dominant consciousness, receives that powerful affirmation of lack and dutifully sustains your poverty. But when you recognize divine abundance as a present, undeniable truth, as a reality already fully existing in the spiritual plane that is simply waiting to manifest physically, the universe responds to that fullness. Fox used a brilliant, clarifying metaphor. The sun is always shining constantly. If a person sits in a room with the heavy blinds pulled tightly closed, they do not receive its warmth or light. But the sun has not stopped shining. The sun is not withholding its light as a punishment. The problem was never the sun, it was always the blinds. The morning declaration is the bold act of rolling up the blinds. It does not create the abundance, because the abundance is already there, pressing against the window. It simply removes the psychological block that has prevented it from flowing into your life naturally. Before we move forward, you must deeply understand the unalterable architecture of the metaphysical treatment that Fox taught. It consists of 4 specific steps. First is stillness. Before speaking a single syllable, you must find a state of deep interior silence where the frantic thoughts of worldly worry are completely replaced by a conscious, highly receptive presence. This is not passive daydreaming, it is active, powerful preparation. Second is recognition. In this silent space, you acknowledge the infinite nature of God as the inexhaustible source of all abundance. This recognition must be deeply felt in the body, not merely thought in the brain. It must descend from the mind down into the heart, where spiritual truth becomes a living, breathing experience. Third is declaration. This is where the truth is spoken aloud with total, uncompromising conviction. Your voice carries tremendous power. Words spoken aloud create physical and spiritual vibrations that your entire being registers. Fox forcefully insisted that this must never be done silently in the mind. The physical act of speaking commits your entire being to the truth. Fourth is gratitude. Immediately after the declaration, you must give profound thanks as if the wealth has already been physically placed into your hands. This anticipated gratitude perfectly closes the spiritual circuit and prepares your consciousness to receive the good without a trace of resistance. The physical and spiritual openness of the fasting body is legendary, recognized across all ancient mystic traditions. The prophet who fasts before receiving revelation, the monk who fasts before deep meditation, the spiritual warrior who fasts before the inner battle, they all understood that the fasting nervous system possesses a profoundly different, elevated quality of attention. The heavy, cynical filters of the human ego are relaxed. In that sacred, untainted space of the early morning, words declared with operative faith are not mere sounds produced by the throat. They are dynamic spiritual acts with the real, undeniable power to transform the invisible planes where all physical reality originates.